Good evening, intuitives. Yes, still in pain, but not quite as bad, and it's upsetting me because I feel lazy because I can't do much, especially go to the gym. So, dealing with that, my thoughts have been racing. There's a lot on my mind. Specifically, one topic that could either be potentially, it's hard to put in the words, but awesome doesn't do it justice. Although, if it's deception, it'll be the blow that puts me down. So, there's that. But through my racing thoughts and my constant pain, with my limited intuition, giving that, I'm mostly focusing on how much my back hurts, and I can't really dive into my mind, so I'm like half blind in a way. Been thinking back on a lot of things, and as I was running errands today, and it really sucks sitting in a car because it hurts, heard one of my all-time favorite songs, a song that for years before I started this channel I designated, and many have now accepted as the INFJ theme song. And I talked about it in another video in my INFJ music playlist. I'm talking about King of Pain by The Police, and I want to do a deeper dive into this song because of how much it's meant to me, since it's 40 years old now. It was written and released in 1983, and it's meant a lot to me since the mid 90s, since long before I knew, what INFJ meant or that I was one. I just related to the song, which is in no coincidence, I think, in a lot of the Police's music and Sting's music, because Sting himself is an INFJ. And one of the lessons this song teaches, you feel the empathy and the misery and, the NITI loop of Sting. And he wrote the song going through his first divorce in the early 80s. And you think about that. In the early 80s, the Police were one of the biggest bands out there. Sting being the front man was the most popular. So Sting had fame, unimaginable wealth. He had youth. He was certainly, most women consider him a good-looking dude, especially back then, when he was a young man, because the early 80s was his prime. He's old now, but, that was his heyday. And yet he was miserable with all that, because for INFJs, what we value the most cannot be bought. Oh, yes. I'm going to use one of my favorite terms again. That elusive blue rose, that true connection, that unconditional love that we search for. Basically, since, the earliest stages of puberty. And it is what we search for and what we desire most. And nothing else can, replace it. Nothing else can fill that void, despite the fact that we don't connect with that many people. We're not interested in large groups of friends or large groups of acquaintances and small talk. Ugh. But that one ultimate connection, we would choose that over anything. Fame, fortune. Listen to Sting's music. Look how miserable he is. And as far as being a successful musician, there weren't many more successful than him in his day, in the 80s when he was in his prime. But a deeper dive into King of Pain, and I was able to do a little research and found some stuff that Sting himself said on it. So this isn't coming from my brain. It's coming from the INFJ brain who wrote it, because obviously Sting can write far better than I can with my bad poetry that I put on here that you should see anyway. Especially my Blue Rose poem. Kind of relates to this. Along the same vein. I'm just not as talented, or I haven't made a pact with the right entity. No, I kid. Lilith. Never mind. So, the King of Pain is a very personal song written by Sting. He had recently separated from his first wife, as I mentioned, who was an actress, Frances Tomley. And he was not getting along with the other two members of the band. The Police were notorious for that. One of my favorite bands. I was fortunate enough that they did a reunion tour in 2007, and I was able to see them live, as I never thought I would, because they broke up before I was born. And Synchronicity is their best album. And it's also interesting, that shows how Sting is interested in his personality and MBTI in general, because the whole Synchronicity album is based on the works of Carl Jung, one of them being the book Synchronicity, which is a good read, but it's long as hell. I suggest the audiobook. And, Sting drives headlong into the track, crowning himself the King of Pain. Well, all INFJs are the kings or queens of pain, because it is by no coincidence that another musician that I relate to a lot and have been a fan of since the 90s, and I relate to her music, and that's right, I said her, so this transcends the fact that I am male and she is female, and that's Alanis Morissette. I've talked about her too. She said this song was very important to her, and actually did a pretty awesome cover of it, and she just changes the word king to queen. But, isn't that funny that another, a baby boomer INFJ writes a song, a Gen X musician covers it because it relates to her, and then some random nobody model INFJ guy dubbed it his theme song since he was like 9 years old. So this song certainly calls to INFJs and calls to the INFJ experience, the NITI loop, and that constant feeling of feeling, the empathy of others, and constantly being in this emotional pain and longing for the one thing we want more than anything, that many of us struggle to find it. Some of us don't even ever get a fair shot. But that could be a regional problem. I'm choosing to believe that as I fight on in my quest for my blue rose that is out there somewhere. Certainly not in Chester County, Pennsylvania, but somewhere. So, Sting said in Musician Magazine, I conjured up symbols of pain and related them to my soul. A black spot on the sun struck me as being a very painful image. There's a little black spot on the sun today. It's the same old thing as yesterday. That's how the song starts. And, it's that same loop of pain, that same monotonous status quo that we struggle with as INFJs, that cycle of pain we can't break no matter what we do, no matter what comes along in our life, no matter how much we strive. That wheel, that cycle of pain just continues. I sing this song to myself all the time when something bad happens. I was singing it to myself the last time I walked out of the Arlington County Fire Department, Fire Academy, in my socks and underwear, because I had to turn my uniforms in, and you can wash that one and bring it back. But instead, I stripped down to my underwear and threw it at my second in at my XO, at my second in command, because I was close with my commanding officer who fought for me. But the second in command was in league with the Good Old Boys Club and actually swept some stuff under the rug that I brought to the surface, and he ended up not getting that promotion. You always were an android, Mark. This dude is more an android than Data from Star Trek Next Generation. But I digress. Sting said he recalled specific incidents in how his future wife inspired the song lyric. This isn't even written well. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, he turned the treaty, little black spot on the sun today. It was indulging his mood and meant to be tolerant. He said it's an extremely empathetic song that deals with his emotions at the time and how he was constantly thinking of the same pain over and over again, wondering what he did wrong, what he could have said differently, what could have been differently. Gee, INFJs sound like an NITI loop much. In the chorus of the song King of Pain is, I've stood here before inside the pouring rain with the world turning circles running round my brain. I guess I'm always hoping that you end this rain, but it's my destiny to be the King of Pain. It's an NITI loop. What else can it be? World turning circles running around your brain. You're in constant pain, and I'm not talking about the physical pain that I'm feeling right now. I'm talking about the emotional pain. So it's, very important to realize that, this is our theme song, like it or not. It describes our emotional state very well. It describes it in a way that most people can understand, because we're INFJs. We don't really understand ourselves all that well, and to try to get us to explain how we're feeling, that's hard. Now, reading other people, really good at it. You know, makes me envious sometimes of INTJs. I haven't really, until recently, really had any deep conversations with any, because they're quite rare, especially female INTJs. And I recently met one. And, her intuition rivals mine. Mine's a little better because I've spent time working on it, and I'm sure the witchcraft helps, but she's not, she doesn't have that whole empathic thing to get in the way. Like, she's logical, factual. And, it's interesting because in our dynamic, it's a little untraditional because I'm the soppy, emotional one, and she's the more logical, factual, practical one. But, INFJs, since when do we care about tradition? As I said, we make good prince consorts and terrible kings. Also, King of Pain, ironically, when I watched the series finale of Game of Thrones, when you see Jon Snow, who is an INFJ also, like walking off alone, like, oh, I'm where I started, they should have played King of Pain as he walked off, because it would have been very fitting. I know not fitting to the genre or the show, but fitting to the character and to a character arc of an INFJ, nonetheless. So for those of you that are not familiar with the song King of Pain by The Police yet, I highly suggest you listen to it. You will relate to it whether you want to or not. And Alanis Morissette's cover is very good too, particularly if you're female, because the line Queen of Pain might, relate to you more, but it not, you know what I mean? It doesn't really, the gender thing doesn't really matter to us. So, it's a comforting song when you're in these dark moods because it helps you think a little clearer. It lets you know that you're not the only one who has these thought patterns, that, somebody, Sting, was able to pretty well explain it in the song, where if you're trying to talk to other people about how you're feeling, because especially if you're in an NITI loop and extroverts who aren't intuitive try to help you, they just don't get it at all. Their answer to everything is more socializing. Put yourself out there and, just go out and, oh, dude, you go out and hot chick, go home. It's like, yeah, I'm an intuitive demisexual. That ain't gonna work for me. And just stop thinking about what you're thinking about. Well, if I could do that, and I can't. None of us can as INFJs. ENFJs are good at getting me out of it because they kind of get it. They're intuitives too, and they're just so sweet and empathetic. Other empaths are helpful when you're in an ITI loop. But also I found recently that, logical intuitives are quite fascinating. Yeah, they're very business savvy and very more able to get things done than we are. We kind of procrastinate. We're pretty emotional people when we feel like it, because when we don't, we can be very stoic. I mean, ENFJs are very emotional, and they show it. They can't hide it. INFJs are very emotional, but whether we want to or not, we feel the emotions of us and others, but we're pretty good at most of the time of not showing it, on our faces, and being able to remain stoic, except for when the INFJ rage is triggered. Yes. So there's that. Video's a little rambly. I think I proved my point. Grade me on a curve. As you can see, I'm in pain. So if I lose my train of thought, it's because I move around and I have a back spasm, and I forget what I'm going to say. But I still hope this was somewhat helpful and informative, and you should check out the song King of Pain by The Police and Alanis Morissette's awesome cover, and also my poetry, particularly my poem on Searching for a Blue Rose, because it kind of relates to this whole theme of what INFJs value above all else, and we're extremely loyal to. But I hope that was informative. Please like and subscribe. Watch my older videos. Help the channel grow, because I'm just a nobody talking into a microphone. I have no marketing. The algorithm doesn't like me because I call out narcissists and this political status quo and baby boomers and things that they just want you to shut up and fall in line behind. But nonetheless, I believe most of my messages are quite important or validating for many of you, and I hope to validate and help others, because that's kind of what drives me. And by kind of, I mean it does, and it's been a nice community here having this channel, because as you all know, my dream was to become a firefighter. I became a firefighter to help others and to find the family I never had, unified in a common goal, hopefully with integrity and honor too. Some of the people I met did, but alas, that was taken from me. So now I have no family and no blue rose. So I just kind of wander. Seems I'm wandering to New York to get back in a career that I never thought I'd re-enter. So it's going to be an interesting chapter here in a couple months as I get closer to fulfilling my obligations as executor of my mother's estate and selling this house. I'd be done already if my brother wasn't a man-child or didn't do anything, but I guess I got to do it all and give him half the money. I do all the work and he gets half the credit. That's kind of been a theme our whole lives, but at least this is, the swan song of that dynamic. So, a little personal insight as well. Thank you, all of you that wish me well. Hopefully, something good, very good on multiple fronts is on the horizon, but only time will tell. All I can do is be my authentic self and be honest and ask for honesty in return and see indeed what happens. Ooh. But time will tell, because time is unbeatable. Time fears the pyramids, which I hope to get to soon, by the way.